So I'm really privileged and excited today because I realize I have acted for every single one of your scripts. So happy, so privileged. But maybe we'll start with introductions. We'll start with the one who is youngest at heart, maybe Gavin.
Younger
you,
than, okay.
you have so many toys, but please introduce yourself.
Gavin, mostly known to be a director, but I do, because it's a writer's roundtable, I was trying to dig out all my writing credits, and I have maybe about 20. So also have been co-writing a lot, even some of Andrew's one, and we work together, sometimes we would do story editing together and all that. So a lot of times working with writers is more important than even working with actors for a director, because it's really the blueprint of how everything is going to be shot or how the story is going to be told.
The story.
So yeah, and that's the one. Always a lot of times with the writers, there's a lot of fights from a director. Like if I'm a writer, of course I won't fight with myself. I will always say that it's the best thing.
As a writer, what genre do you prefer writing?
I started writing for myself because I couldn't get like a very specific kind of writing, which is more genre kind of writing, more thriller, action based, and all that. So that's actually how I also met with Andrew, because he has actually quite a wide vocabulary of writing.
Maybe then, Andrew, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Andrew. Been in the writing beast for quite a while. Started in television, all the local classics under one roof growing up, 999, culminated in Fighting Spiders, and then I did 2 feature films. And in between, I do a lot of projects. And I'm primarily a writer. Although I did direct 1 short film, my first experience as a director, I still prefer writing.
Of course, commission work aside, personally as a writer, are there any genres that you personally prefer?
Similar to Gavin, so I like the action, thriller, horror. Actually, like rom-coms, comedy.
Right.
Yeah, mostly all the genre stuff I like.
You guys don't want to know what Gavin wrote for me to do. Anyway, I want to know. Talk about
Ming Siu, yeah.
Now I'm intrigued. We can talk off camera if you want. My name is Ming Siu. I am a writer, director, producer. I think that's about it.
Podcaster.
Yeah, I don't know.
Actor.
There's a lot of hyphenates. I have worked in a wide variety of genres, as well as different mediums. So for the stage, for film, for television, but I keep on coming back to genre stuff because I enjoy doing that. It's either genre stuff or like just pure drama, and not really like the heartwarming type of thing. I very little interest in that sort of thing. So it's either like dark drama or else like horror, thriller, that sort of thing. I like comedy as well. And horror and comedy are quite similar in that you play with rhythms. One of the projects that I'm in the process of pitching right now is a horror comedy, so that's fun.
Exciting. I'm having this like flashback and realizing now that all of your scripts that I've worked on had me either dying or crying somewhere. Even yourself, Kris. Kris, do you want to introduce?
Sure. I'm so sorry first for that. I'm Kris. I'm a screenwriter. I'm also the co-founder of an Asian film and TV company, Momo Film Co. My most recent writing credit was at Juma, which was I co-wrote with He Shuming, the director. I'm somebody who stumbled into screenwriting about over a decade ago, and really fell in love with it. I write for all genres, but the most important thing for me is that I love stories that are funny and sad.
Funny and sad.
So I think maybe the sad part is where that came in with the story that we worked on together.
Yeah, I'm seeing that you guys, all 4 of you, have a lot in common when not commissioned. And I'm also hearing that it wasn't your first choice to be a film writer. It kind of evolved.
Actually, you don't have much choice. I mean, when I first started, there wasn't this thing called TV writing.
In MediaCorp.
Yeah, my entry to writing was participating in the NUS short play competition. So the NUS short play competition, I submitted a play, and then it won a prize. So I was so shocked. So I thought, huh? Because I'm a physics student. I'm not a lit student. So for me to win a prize was mind blowing. So I actually went all the way to the literature faculty and I looked up the professor. I actually went and knocked on the door. Then I said, "Are you sure you gave to the right person?" Then why did you award the prize? And then the funny thing was she pointed out in technical terms, like, oh, you did this, you did this. I didn't even know there were technical terms or that. Then she asked me, then so how did you write? You're from the science faculty, right? How did you write this? Oh, I'm a big fan of Neil Simon, the American playwright. I read his plays from front to back, and front to back, and front to back. I had to memorize all the lines. And I was specifically trying to copy that kind of rhythm storytelling. And then she was quite shocked. Then when I left the office, I realized that maybe I can do this thing. I wasn't very good at science, but I could do this thing. So I started doing that. And then I think there was an ad in the papers that asking for people to join a class for drama.
SBC at that point.
SBC at the time. So I took part because they were trying to come up with a new show. I hesitate to say the name. Just say it was Masters of Sea. That was the first.
It's a classic.
Wow.
First one. So at that time there was no final draft. There was no laptop. Actually, I had to type out the script. Yeah, so I type out, and then there's some virtues to typing. You tend to be more careful with your words. Yeah, otherwise you need to use your pen, the eraser to then erase the words.
Liquid
Yeah.
paper.
Liquid paper. Yeah, submitted that, and then I got in. I got into the team. So I started to work on Masters of Sea, and I worked with that time this lady called Joanne Brough was the EP of Falcon Crest, the popular soap drama at that time. So it was an interesting experience trying to work in a team. I was a second writer, so whatever the first writer came up with as a cliffhanger, I'm supposed to follow up on that. And I also have a cliffhanger for the third writer to follow up.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. So that's my first experience of doing that. And then later on, there was a radio show with Kumar inside. First, at that time I was still teaching. I was a junior college teacher. So I would come home and I'd watch Rara show. And sad to say, I keep thinking, who writes those stuff then? Then the radio show came out, and then Rara show, sketch comedy. Then
So good.
the radio show came out with Kumar and I think one producer there. I called in to ask this question: who writes for the show? And that's where I learned there's such thing called scriptwriter. Yeah. Then I was so taken aback that I put down the phone, and then after I realized, hey, I forgot to ask. How do I
Become a scriptwriter.
Yeah, so I call again.
Right.
But I disguise my voice.
I like it.
And I got through, I think all this is fate. So I got through.
I like
Yeah, then I try to say, I just want to know whether, just now the other caller talk about scriptwriter, so, and they say, yeah, you write into this address. Wow, I wrote it down. Yeah. That's my journey. So I was writing jokes like
You need a biopic.
Yeah.
I will watch it.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? 5 jokes. So it's 25 jokes. Friday, mail it to TCS, and then they pick 5. They pick 5 jokes, and then they pay me $500 for that.
Wow.
Wow, that's good
More
money,
than
man.
today.
Yeah.
And a lot for then.
Yeah, so I had that, and I had that. So then I had to make a decision now. Do I want to quit my teaching job at that time? So my bond was ending. So I thought, just quit lah. Then I took the leap forward lah. Then I joined them.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that's where it started the whole thing.
So did you and Ming Siu overlap?
No, I think he came in
We
when I
overlap
left.
on some shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was him as a freelance and me as a full-time. Yeah,
I see,
yeah.
I see.
So Police and Thief, I think
Yes,
I met
that was-
him. Yeah. So when I left Police and Thief, that's where he came in. Yeah.
So how did Ming Siu end up as a scriptwriter?
So I went to film school in the US, and there I think I kind of wanted to direct, but I also wanted to know everything there was to know. So I took production courses in every aspect your editing, your sound design, your visual effects, and writing obviously was one of them. Yeah. It turns out that, I don't know, maybe it's my teacher being very encouraging. But then later I realized that, like US teachers are just encouraging, even if your work isn't very good. So
Yeah, but I'm very good at that. You know?
yeah,
Yeah, it's a skill.
yeah. It sounds very genuine, but you never know. But no. I love him. He's a great guy. We're still in touch on Facebook and that sort of thing. But yeah, they know how to deliver the shit sandwich, right? Your praise, and then your criticism, and then praise, shit sandwich. Yeah. But anyway, I took more writing courses, and that was one of them was actually how I got started on horror, I think, because it was specifically a horror screenwriting course. So we analyzed horror films and how they worked and sort of like the socio-economic backgrounds of the countries in which they were produced, like why was this made at this sort of time and what fears of society that they express through that film, for instance, right? Like whether it's like the body horror of The Fly or werewolves or whatever. So that got me into genre stuff.
Right.
And then when I came back to Singapore, I joined MediaCorp, and I think in my second year, I started writing and directing for stuff because I basically pestered my EP until they gave in. I said, okay. You go and write one script. You go and write one script, yeah, that sort of thing.
So when you first joined MediaCorp, what capacity did you?
I was AD, assistant director, which basically, for people who don't know out there, means that you do all of the shit work. I'm sorry, can we say shit? I don't know.
Ken, I heard you being said.
Right. All of the bitch work. Well, that doesn't sound good also. But all of the work that nobody else wants to do.
Actually, AD is very important. When
Yeah,
I
it's
directed
very
my first
important.
film,
Yeah.
right, and I couldn't have done it. I think I got Tiffany.
Tiffany is great.
Yeah. We all
She's
love Tiffany.
amazing.
Tiffany
Everybody
is
loves
the
Tiffany.
queen of ADs.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when I worked with her, I realized why. She made everything possible so that you can do your sole job as a director, which is to look after the performances.
Exactly.
And she makes us feel very taken care of.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a bit scary.
And she's on top of the technical crew as well. Which
Yeah.
is-
Yeah.
She's a lovely
Yeah,
person.
it's insane the amount of things you have to juggle as an AD, which obviously serves you very well when you start to direct and all that sort of thing.
But how do you go from AD to scriptwriter?
Well, by
Besides
pestering
pesting?
or and then after that by I guess maybe demonstrating that I could do the work. Yeah. And until now this is my 20th year as a screenwriter and director.
Wow.
So I write more than I direct, simply because that's how the jobs have worked out for me. Personally, I prefer directing just because it's more social. And you get to talk to people, you talk to actors, work with lovely actors, things like that.
I thought that Kris, screenwriting was your choice, and I was surprised to hear that you stumbled into it.
When I went into Ngin Poly to study film, sound and video, I had this mistaken idea that I could be a cinematographer, and I quickly learned that it was not for me. It's not for me. But I think from a young age, I was really interested in writing and photography as a means of just expression, emotional expression. So I think when I started doing screenwriting, I brought that into my work as an outlet for whatever I was feeling, and a way of connecting with myself and with the world. And I think maybe that was something that my screenwriting lecturer picked up on at that time. He's a producer, it's Lai Weijie. He's a fantastic producer. So he was my teacher at the time, and he was actually the person that gave me my first job. Yeah, so that's how I ended up thinking like, hey, maybe I can explore screenwriting. And I quickly learned that it was writing is very lonely and painful, but also very therapeutic, actually, at least for me. Yeah, so I really channel a lot of my feelings into my work, and that just carried on. Yeah.
I actually want to discuss the hell of writer's block with you guys, but before we do that, I've been always wanting to tell Gavin. Actually, I told you before, but today I can officially tell Gavin, like, one of my first few challenging short films was a short film that Gavin wrote and directed, and I was actually scared because I had to take my clothes off. But I think what gave me a lot of confidence and comfort was when Gavin also shared that he took an actor's course to understand how we feel. It's okay, this guy is putting his money where his mouth is. But Gavin, did you start to write because you just wanted to explore stories that you wanted to direct?
I mean, I was running an ad agency, so I was directing the commercials, quite a bit of it. So the agency, I was looking at what else to do. So that's when I thought, okay, I'll just do a short film. And then that's where the blank paper is, and I do what short film, right? And that's where the writing starts. Then I say, okay, I need to write. So, that's the basis. Right? What kind of things do I like to write? So my first short that I ever did was right after I sold the agency, was about how I hated, the agency, everybody don't say what they mean. So that was my short. Like two persons come back together and they're not being honest, but the subtitle shows
It's
what
like
they
Keegan,
mean.
Keegan, right?
Yeah. So that was my first one.
But you see, you could have hired Andrew asked your friends
I
to
know
write.
nobody. I know nobody. So
That's
I
why
don't
I'm so
even know
impressed.
actors.
Yeah.
And all that. So I started to learn how to write, and then after that, when that became win some small prize and all that, then I thought, okay, maybe I should go nearer to this filmmaking thing. That's when I started the 24 hours screenwriting, theatre works thing.
Playwriting, yeah.
Yeah, then we had the writers lab.
Mm.
Then after that, I got very interested, so I took up writing courses in New York with Steve Kaplan doing comedy, John Truby for structure. So then I thought, okay, maybe I should try acting because I thought it's quite stupid. You just write, and then the actor will do it. And I was like, but after the course, my respect for actors, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is tough.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
mean, yeah. And I was the only Asian. I decided not to do the normal route, which is everybody goes to the method one, which is called
Stanislavski?
no, there's another name.
The one you went on, is it the actor, director?
Yeah, the new actors workshop
The
is
lady,
actually no, it's run by director Mike Nichols, George Morrison, and then
okay.
Paul Sills. Paul Sills is the son of improv. The mother is the creator of improv. So I went to that, which is very silly because I thought that I don't want to go the one that everybody go, or Zoe Tay went, right? So I decided not to go that one. So I thought, okay, this one seems to be like working actors will go there. So that's when I started to learn a lot of improv, actually, strangely, which is for somebody who's that's why I wear a cap, because I got dead eyes, right? I decided to learn how to act. So that really created quite a lot of learning of how I become a good director. I think to qualify the part about didn't take off all the clothes.
I did not. And his wife was on set the whole time.
Every time I would just say
That's
that
why
my
it's
wife
fine.
is
Yes.
around, so I'm
Really
not trying to be
helped.
funny.
No, it's not. Otherwise, you won't be still. Yeah, no.
I totally agree with, I think all directors need to go and take acting courses if you've never done it before, because otherwise it's like you're talking in two different languages, because actors have their own language of expression. And I think part of the reason why I don't find it super difficult to direct actors is because I have acted before, even if it's, not in a super professional capacity, but the fact that I've been through that process and stood up on stage and done a full play and things like that, it helps, I think.
I have so much to say about that, but I wanted to also say that this is also why it's so important that I guess filmmakers, writers have so many different experiences, because writers, you guys are the ones who shape all the details of where the story is gonna go. But
And also whether or not the dialogue is actually performable,
right. Oh wow.
rather than one gigantic chunk how to perform. I don't know.
We can talk about dialogue.
No, it's fine.
But
We can move
it's
on.
actually a pleasure, right, when you get that good dialogue, because everybody has carved out a piece of meat, but when you get this really good one, you're like, oh sure, I get to say this, thank you. And usually we don't get to meet the writers unless it's the writer-director
No,
himself or
because for
herself.
me, my heroes were all writers. Actually, because I mean, I'm going to be a bit literary here. So, I grew up reading Somerset Maugham,
Yeah.
right? Somerset Maugham of Human Bondage. I remember when I read Human Bondage, I finished the last page and I was sitting in my bed there crying. It was so profound. And then I was reading Flaubert, Madame Bovary, and Guy de Maupassant, and then Chekhov.
Science student.
Yeah, so anyway,
That's why you're bad at science.
yeah,
Because you never read the textbook
yeah.
so many times.
So Chekhov is a Russian writer, the master of writing. On the surface, when you read a Chekhov story, right, it looks like there's no structure, but then after you read everything, you feel something.
Yeah.
And Maupassant is the grandmaster of writing. There's a twist ending. Most famous one is Boulet de Souffle, the ball of fat and the necklace. So I grew up, these are all my heroes. And then reality set in that no money to be a short story writer. Then playwriting, like Oscar Wilde or Neil Simon, and then started reading. That's where I learned how to write a dialogue. And then you read, when the shows come in that time, David Kelly, or those are all my heroes.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I've always thought it's amazing, like a person write a script, right? And within 3 weeks, somebody actually put together the world, and it would not have been possible.
When I hear someone so prolific like you share about your writing, then I write as well, but I'm constantly in having a writer's block or in editing purgatory. Do you ever experience writer's block?
I don't actually believe in that. I think writer's block.
Oh my god! I
Yeah.
quit. I don't want
No, because what you hear, people always talk about block. There's no block.
It's real.
Oh yeah, but you just do it. It's seriously you okay. I have some terms that you set aside what I call sacred hours. So sacred hours are hours where cannot touch, cannot bother me. Switch off all your phone, everything. And you have a minimum word count. Right, okay, 500 words today. You cannot make 500 words, 300, but you have a lower limit. Just do 300. And it's going to be terrible, it's going to be awful, but it's okay. It's only you yourself going to read it. Right? But the fact is, you got 300 words down already. And it's going to make your job tomorrow much easier because we have something to work on. So there's no block. You just have to push through the block. The block is self-imposed. There's no block. You just have to do 300 words. 300 words. Okay, 300 cannot make it 100 words. Can you do 100 words? Can you do 50 words? Can you do one sentence? I'm sure you can do one sentence, right? If you can do one sentence, you can do two. You can do two, you can do three. And so on and so forth.
I think when writing is your job, like day in and day out, and then you have to make that work. I find that talking to really, really like writers who've written for decades, they tend to see it as like, oh, this is the job. Like if it's bad writing, I still need to submit it. Like, it still needs to go out. Whereas I think when I was younger, I had a lot more blocks because I was always terrified that it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And there was such a huge gap between what I wanted to say and what was on the page. I just couldn't bridge it. And so to me, it felt like a huge obstacle, right? And I would take a break, I'll walk away, very dramatic, I'll be like, in pain and all that kind of things, a lot of angst. But then I think as I started to, look at more as a job, I found myself having to turn in things that maybe I wasn't 100% satisfied with, but there was also 10 other projects I needed to do at the same time, and maybe they couldn't be like masterpieces every single time, but I would try and distribute it as much as I could. So my energy as much as I could. So, but I do think that sometimes there is an emotional block, perhaps, of there's something I really want to express, but I just can't put it on the page. And when I have that, I tend to think of it as a body problem. Like I need to take a walk. I need to not sit down here and be in front of the computer because clearly something is not working. So I tend to go for a walk. And sometimes I like, my favorite part is I take a nap. Yeah. Because I think something really interesting happens when the body is relaxed. Yeah, new connections can be made and things like that. So I'm always like,
I mean, if you look at the biographies of famous writers, this guy Anthony Trollope is very famous for a body of work. Every year he writes one novel. I read his biography. People at the time were quite amazed how this guy does it. He clocks in the hours. So you wake up, set routine. You wake up sit down, tea, and then he just boom, he doesn't even think about it. And then the Mopaso, Florbe was his mentor, and Florbe tells him, get black and white. Just get black and white. Yeah, and constant revision. All writing is rewriting. Yeah.
I think it was Hemingway who has that same practice of writing in the morning undisturbed, and then he has his lunch with his wife, and then I think in the evening he makes his wife read his writing to him so he can just hear it. Do you make Emily do it?
No, there's ChatGPT now.
I think Final Draft can also read that.
I think so.
Yeah, I think
it's
so,
very
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
But very weird. It's very
Yes,
weird.
yes.
Very weird.
Very robotic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
You can also call your actor friends. Hello, can you guys read this to
No,
me?
no, no. When you get your script in a good enough condition, right? It's vital, I feel, to have
Yeah, yeah.
actors come in and
Yeah,
read it.
table read, they call it the table
to
read.
hear, and then you go off and do another
Yeah.
big rewrite.
Mm.
Yeah, because hearing it is totally different.
In table read, we do like as a rehearsal, but I think like even during the writing process, actually, have you guys involved your
I have.
actors to read? Yeah.
I have. It helps a lot.
Yeah, I can share an anecdote about table read, where I never expect the actor to read their line that way. I think it was with Mark Lee, the very first episode of Police and Thief. So there was a table read.
Mark is so good.
Yeah. So when Mark Lee was reading the script, right, he kept saying stall one. Stall one. Then I was very puzzled. I said, there's no way I wrote stall one. Then after the table read, hey, Mark, where's stall one? Then in the script, stall one. Where? Then I read, oh, Stallone. So he pronounced Stallone and stall one. Then when I realized that, oh wow, okay, that's very interesting. So that made me realize that okay, I'll be very, very extra careful to write for Mark Lee. So if you notice, like Police and Thief, right, any sentence it's always chopped up into two parts. Right? Tomorrow, go makan. Come home. Tonight, we eat. So it's always, it's not a full sentence because Mark Lee will tend to garble the thing. Because, I mean, the guy can read Stallone and stall one. So you have to be very careful. Don't assume that anyone can read your lines.
Right.
So that's why table read is so important.
Well, okay, but to put it another way, like it's not just about like the shortcomings of people or whatever, right? But also playing to their strengths. What are they great at? And then you can you can sort of magnify that through your dialogue on the page as well.
Yeah.
Like he's very good at subtext. He's very good at delivering at timing. So you when you have stuff that is heavily relying on that, just give it to him. He can totally do it. I love Mark.
Moses Lim also.
Yeah.
But table read is usually after the project has been commissioned, right?
Yeah.
Have you had I would even consider it a luxury to even, while at the scripting process, have actors come in and then improv or brainstorm the direction of your story or script.
You can do that on independent projects lah. And call in your favors and all that law. That is kind of pretty much like I think that is a limitation of our TV industry that somehow we cannot afford the budget and cannot afford the time to do such things. Yeah, but if it's an independent project that I myself am going to push to, film funding bodies and markets outside of Singapore, then that is definitely something that I always try to do when I have a draft that I'm happy with.
So when it's an independent project, like I think Gavin, you mentioned you wrote like 20
Plus, yeah,
20
but
plus.
mostly TV.
Mostly TV.
The own projects is when you're writing for yourself. I think you've got to be careful because, like, even my feature film is almost like you didn't have the pressure, so it's almost like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? So it went in. Wouldn't it be funny? It went in. Everything is like, you're just trying to be in a candy store or whatever you can't do, then you express it. So it is also sort of like a form that I really like to explore, because a lot of times I find a lot of Singaporean writers self-censor themselves, even directors. I'm like, why didn't you go to? They won't allow it. I'm like, it becomes a problem for us because we don't express what we think is maybe a fuller expression of what you wanted to say. So I do see that also as something that I want to explore. I'm not saying that it was a success, whatever I did before, but it was definitely something that I thought that maybe was a little bit too constrained I think a lot of times, even for myself,
Are you referring to the story or the character or the dialogue?
everything. We're very used to, even with YouTube and all that, you see a lot of instructions on writing, like, hero's journey, or like, 22 steps with John Truby and all. And I think it's great as a clutch for you to start and at least have your vomit draft. But after that, I thought it should be unfettered, meaning that don't think about budgets, don't think about whether Singaporeans will like it. That's something that I keep hearing a lot now. What Singaporeans will like, I'm like, I think it's quite a bad place to go because I don't think they know,
Yeah.
what they will like. They are very well trained with very good production values, very good writing. I mean, if you see a Korean drama, is even though however hammy it is, it's still good writing. It's like within 5 minutes, my wife is hooked. I'm like, really seriously? Hey, this is gonna happen, 200 episodes, but she's still wow. It's just the way it works, right? That's why I said the expression of just going somewhere that you can. And that's why I think one of the questions was like, what else do I want to do? Would be not too much commission work, because commission work comes with money. Then there's quite a lot of stakeholders, and then you will have this cocoon that you have to sort of like build your babies with. But as I said, on this table, I think maybe I'm the least writery.
No, remember one show I
No,
did
it's
I did with him. Don't know whether you remember this premonition.
Yeah, focus.
So remember he asked me to write, I remember what he told me. He said, you just write whatever, just let go. Okay, you
Let
say
go.
one.
Yeah.
So I remember I was writing like damn long monologues. So I love monologue.
Wow.
Utopia, that was my
Yeah.
inspiration.
You were the
that
EP at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
so I was writing Utopia. Utopia was very long monologue, but they are fascinating. They're
Yeah.
telling stories within the monologue.
great series.
Yeah, that was my influence. So I was writing really crazy stuff, man. Then it was like, bring on, man. Then after that, the network came in. Wow, that become. I remember you told me, now they want Ghost Whisperer. Ghost Whisperer and Utopia is like, it's like, huh? And then it's almost middle of production.
I think this is where it really illustrates that writers have so much power with the least cost. Because you can change one word and the production budget can go from like $10 to like 10 million just with your words.
Well, but we also have the least amount of power. Because whatever people say, we have to read it.
Yeah, this amount of power. Like the totem pole, right? The writers are the bottom.
Maybe is that true with independent filmmaking? Because we sell the story
so,
first.
so independent is where you have more power as a creative because you're like, this is the story that I want to tell.
Yeah.
And then it really is up to you. If there are stakeholders, if there are certain funding bodies or whatever, they say, actually, this thing we're not comfortable with, or actually because you like that, that's why we don't want to fund you or whatever. Or like a studio that says, right, I will give you money if you make it into something else that we want, right? Then as an independent, then you always have the power to say, no, thank you. I mean, it's a choice.
Yeah.
Right. If you desperately want to get that film made and to get an income or whatever, okay, then you go with the studio and then you do the changes, but that is you saying, yes, okay, I will do it. Then okay, you do it, then you actually kind of got not much right to go and complain about it anymore, because that's what you accepted, those were the terms. Right? And if you didn't want to do that, then don't. Then hold off, wait until maybe 10 years down the line, maybe somebody might come along who believes in that vision. But that one is always a question mark.
I think for myself, like I don't tend to think of it as how much power a writer has, because I think that changes a lot depending on what stage of your career you're at. Like say in Korea, there are some writers who basically are very, very well paid and who control whatever stories they want to make, they can make them. So I think it really depends on what what kind of body of work you have before. For me, I tend to think of it as more as I guess a constant discussion with producers, with directors, whoever is making the project, and also going back to what Gavin said earlier about having self-censoring and having expression.
Yes.
There are people who are doing this every single day, who are going to be much better at it than me as a writer. And I would prefer not to think about that. So I focus a lot on just the emotion, what our audience is going to feel and what they're going to remember when they've finished watching whatever it is that we're making together.
Andrew, you mentioned that you think that writer's block is a myth or it doesn't exist. And you also talked about like the time taken and all that sort of thing, right? And I have to say, actually, I agree very much with both of you. I think a lot of the time writer's block happens on work, and I'm saying work that you do, because there's a disconnect, because you don't actually care about that. So it becomes very tedious. And I've had this happen to me before, especially if I'm working on corporate stuff. Not that I don't want to do corporate stuff. It's great, it's a good income, but it's so difficult to like, do I really care that this video is gonna teach consumers? And oh God, right? That's the block. And then if the block happens because when it's something that you deeply care about also, maybe it's because you haven't taken time to mull, time to process, time to digest, and sort of feel your way around that story and know deep in your bones how it's supposed to go before you sit down and write something. So the walking, I do a lot of that. When I receive a treatment or beat sheet from somebody, right, I cannot write right away. I have to read it and digest it and then ignore it for like a day or two before I start to actually write it. Then in that period of time, then, it's very strange, but I think our rush to do things fast is actually hindering progress. Like productivity for me is actually slowing down and taking the time to process before I start to do it.
I'm curious, how do you guys develop your characters? Does the story come first? Or usually, I guess, story is there. How do you then make that one character so unique or so perverted?
Are you looking at me?
How do you get in their psyche?
So far, the things that I write, I actually write from the characters instead of even the story. Character, then theme, right? Mostly about like, I think somebody said about like, if you want to write something or do something or direct something, it has to be something that you wanted to say really about why ERP is so high or whatever. But then I like look into character studies, and mostly I look into people around me or like people I know or my uncle and then from there I try to look for how it sits inside the theme. And most of my writing almost like, it has a sad ending, like tragic ending. I don't know why.
I'm quite similar. I tend to base my characters off people I know, mostly because I think there's something interesting about how people don't always act the way that they want. For example, someone may have a crush on someone, but they may not act on it. They may not say it. They might really want something, but there's something that holds them back. And I find that tension really interesting, and I find that tends to be what makes characters feel relatable to people, how people can be full of contradictions. So I like to use that as inspiration for my writing. Yeah.
So a lot of times people might think that character is backstory, right? And while that is important, very often a lot of it is not performable, right? Like as an actor, when you receive a character bio for an audition, a lot of times you might find that like 90% of that information cannot be performed in the audition. It's like 20 years of trauma, for instance, and then the audition may be like two people sit down and have a meal. Like, how are you going to perform 20 years of trauma, right? So what is very important is to make the distinction clear that character is not backstory. To me, and this is a recent understanding that I've gained, I also don't know why I didn't read it anywhere. So the backstory, the history, informs a certain worldview of the character, which is a set of beliefs that they have.
Yep.
And that belief system informs every single reaction and action that they take. How are they responding to people? Are they kind or unkind? Are they brief? Are they curt? Are they, all of that is encapsulated within this worldview. So I think, to me, character is worldview.
Yeah, a bit of the worldview thing. This character thing is, I also read a lot of psychology books, which is very interesting. This guy Adam Grant, he wrote a book on hidden potential. It's quite interesting. So he talks about character, like personality and character. It's like, character is what you show up on a tough day. Yeah. Personality can fluctuate. So once you understand that definition, right, I always believe that on any episode, any show, every character, what's the dominant trait? So I have my own theory. I call it the heart, minds, and balls. I use this theory whenever I have to create ensemble characters. Like Fighting Spider, three boys. The Peter, the British boy. If you notice, for any situation that crops up, right, he's the one that's always applying reason and logic.
Edwin's character.
No, not Edwin. It's Peter's character.
Peter's character.
Yeah. So he's the mind.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So the impetuous one is Edwin's characters. So any situation, he's always the first one to say, "Hey, let's do it. Don't care about consequences." So he's the balls, you know. And of course, the middle one, the fat kid, is Charlie. He's the heart, So anything to do with sentiment and emotion, he's the first one, So if his two friends argue, right, he will agree with you and agree with the other one. He can't make up his mind, because he likes both of them. If I keep that in mind, it affects the dialogue. Maybe to qualify a bit what makes you say about the backstory. Yeah, I do agree. Backstory, normally you can come up with backstory after you establish the dominant trait. I think more important than backstory is what they call it the tragic flaw. Like, what is that one thing? Like, if you watch, it's a very famous movie where the mother is quite mean one. Then later on, you realize that because her kid drowned, and then she's taking all her anger on this other kid. Yeah, so that was that wound there. So the wound has to be relevant to the story you're telling. Because of this thing happened when she was like 5 years old. Because like, usually it's father, mother, a family thing. Then the scar. And then the scar is born throughout, and it's going to affect the relationship. That's why, so you figure out the dominant trait, you figure out the tragic flaw, and then that's where you have your character. Then the other thing will be all the traits. So the traits will be vocabulary, attitude, traits. This will give you the surface level, but the deeper one, you need to talk about the worldview. How does this character view the world? Is he a giver or a taker?
Right.
Yeah. So all this come to your considerations in crafting your main characters.
And the needs versus the wants.
The need versus the one, the external and the internal, the goal. It's very important for any story, especially on film. What the heck does this character want?
So do you guys have this like giant board of like every character's post-it notes across your wall?
I think needs and wants for me is very important for a character to establish. But typically when I am drawing influence, and I tend to draw influence from people that I know or in my life, I don't actually flash out exactly like traits. Because I think that the way that the scene is structured, when it reveals character meaningfully, I like to have that spontaneity of what's going to happen. And I find that that makes it exciting for me to figure out, also asking myself, what are they going to do next? Yeah, I'm not having a very clear path to begin with. I find that this process of discovering the character just very exciting for me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can't plan too much.
You can't plan too much, because I remember when I did screenwriting in university, and I remember like they would ask us to do like a huge map of like what are their personality traits, what do they like to eat and things like that. And I found it very unhelpful actually, because I think that once more information is gathered, it can become very confusing for, at least it was confusing for me as a writer. The more I detailed, the less I knew of the character. Yeah, whereas I think when I put them in a situation, in a scene, something happens. A dialogue between me as a writer and the character happens, and I I can discover them better.
This
That-
film is
that-
also collaborative.
That's one theory lah. I subscribe to that lah. So it's like you put the character in a situation and then you see how the character responds, and somehow how the character responds will speak to something that you feel, is it? That gives you depth. There's another theory where this manga creator and he wrote a book on how to write manga, and he actually suggested that you know credit card, you have to fill out all your details on, like your full name, when you were born, what you like, what you don't like. He recommends that, you know, and he does that for all his characters, and he generates stories from that, which I thought was fascinating lah. Literally generate plots from those things, you know. And then there's another Japanese writer, and he suggested the way he go about creating buddy, just have both of them opposing night and day. And he came up with a very well-known manga about these two convicts chained together. One is a black and one is a Japanese. And then he just let them run. And one is very scared, one is not scared. And he just generated content out of that.
So film is so collaborative, right? Do you guys feel like the way you write your characters change perhaps after casting happens? Has that ever happened to you?
I think that once actors come in, everything changes
everything
when it
change.
comes to character, and so I think that's a
Yeah.
fascinating process actually. I there are some writers who are very precious about the characters and the dialogue that they write, but I think there's so much magic that happens when an actor brings in their own interpretation of a character. Yeah.
Sometimes we'd ask, like, is the writer okay if things change?
I mean, it's just
During the
polite lah to ask, you know, because sometimes when they change a line, you know, sometimes especially when you're doing a sitcom, a comedy, or even a drama where it's episodic in a series, sometimes you change one line, you're going to affect episode 8 down the line. You don't know, right? So it's always good to ask.
No, I
let
mean,
the
definitely
writer
you don't
know.
change the story,
Yeah.
but maybe the delivery of certain lines or maybe the expression.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's just courteous to talk to the writer. Yeah.
And then also, like, does your character, do you find that because all of us have a limited worldview as much as we try and tap into other people, do you find that it helps to have a co-writer when developing characters?
I think if you're dealing with a TV series or something that has a ton of character, you know, that has a lot of characters, a writer's room is always super useful, where everybody is giving ideas, everybody's helping to shape the thing, but it's also very difficult to run a writer's room. So the person in charge, the head writer or the showrunner, they need to be extremely clear of what they are trying to achieve, right? So that everything is directed towards a very clear end goal.
Actually, how different is it creating in a writer's room? All these other writers, like, discussing and throwing out and fighting over ideas versus, like, writing alone in your own room with your own script.
I think for comedy, especially a sitcom, it's good to have a writer's room. I've done both. I've written series by myself. I've also participated in a show that has a lot of writers' room. Both has merits. I prefer to be the writers' room. Then you can bang on other people's ideas. Then other people can support your idea and you can support others' ideas. But I also enjoy writing everything myself because then you really, it's really your vision. So like Fighting Spiders was truly my love letter to the 60s. And it was really totality of everything I've learned about comedy and drama. I put it in that show. Yeah. But writer's room is good, especially for series.
Do you feel like in Singapore, at least when you're in a writer's room, are we seeing the same collaborators? Because I often hear this comment about how there is not enough screenwriters in Singapore.
That's true. Always the same people. But they got her. She's kind of new generation.
Something that I wish writers from the new generation, as you put it, had more of was a training system that is more commonly seen in, say, like the US or in Korea or in China, where you start off maybe as a junior writer and then you become an assistant writer. And then
That's true. That's true.
I think that's something that when I hear your stories, I feel I really wish I had that sort of experience, because I think it trains writers really well. For me, I stumbled into it. I started out doing script coverage just by pure dumb luck. Someone asked me to do it, and I did it. So I read a lot of screenplays and novels, and I had to do coverage for it, articulating like why it's mediocre or bad, and that was a really huge education for me. And then from there, I was mentored and I shadowed another writer, and so I unknowingly stumbled into that training, you know. But I think a lot of Singapore needs a lot more writers, and I think having that training system would be hugely beneficial for them.
One of the things that kind of we lost was especially in comedy writing, because you don't jump into writing a sitcom episode.
Yeah.
You start by writing jokes for sketches. So I started writing jokes for 5 minutes of a sketch show. That's all I was writing. Stupid, silly puns jokes.
Wow.
Like, so I buy a Christmas present for my boss. What should I get him? Because my boss, I caught him having an affair. So I buy a Christmas present. What should I buy him? Kumar says, oh, buy something to wear, like a divorce suit. Those kind of lame pun lah. But then you learn how to make a joke, you know. And then from there you learn, after that, once you can master joke, you do a sketch, which is a story with jokes.
Right.
Yeah, after you master sketch, then you go to a 22-minute sitcom episode, which is longer narrative with two plots.
Subplot. Yeah.
Yeah, subplots with jokes and drama. And then after that, you go on a 1 hour drama, which is drama. Then you do telemovie, which is 90 minutes. Then feature film. So it's almost like a progression. But now, writers straight away, okay, you write a sitcom episode, and then it comes out the script like not good lah. And then you say, hey, you cannot write. It's not true. It takes a lot of
Training.
craft
Wow.
training
Yeah,
A lot of
to get to
training.
that level where you can tell a story.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you can tell jokes and you can make it funny and you can make it emotional.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah, I think the other thing is also that like for you, you had a lot of experience writing for other people. It's actually such a huge learning experience. For me, I wrote for other people for a really long time before I started writing, like developing ideas of my own. And of course, at the back of my head, I was always like, oh, you know, harboring some like masterpiece or something that I thought was gonna be huge. But by the time I actually sat down to just work on my own things, I felt confident that I could do it. Yeah. Whereas I think writers, like when they first graduate, they have this idea that they want to make like an original series off the bat, and it's just very, very hard to do if you've not had that training and also the confidence, that comes from working for other people.
Talking about working together, I mean, I didn't work in a room, but of course I worked with several writers before. And you were involved. Actually, I'm doing my master's, and she was involved in this like a experiment on using agile, right? Agile methodology on writing. So I got a few actors together and another director, and then we try to emulate the Elon Musk 3-hour scrum and sprint, and we carved out a sitcom concept in 3 hours. So of course it's not good, but I thought there was a little bit of a group meld that you will never be able to do on your own, which is our modus operandi for a lot of writers, which is you hire, and then okay, you do this part, then you come back 2 weeks later. Actually, that's the part that I'm actually quite interested to bring back, because you're right about the writer's room. It's a big luxury. You've got to be a big project. They can bring them together consistently. I think maybe something which I'm also doing for my thesis, which is smaller scrums and sprints, then break up the silos again, then come back into sprints. And so, yeah, that's something that I'm interested in, which you were involved in.
This
So I got a distinction.
Yeah.
for that.
Congratulations. It's so interesting because here we are hearing two ends of how scriptwriters have been working in Singapore. Right? We have from decades of the experience of writing jokes first and then evolving all the way into 90 minutes and above. And then now we also having the privilege of learning Gavin's Tesla-inspired screenwriting exercise.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, we're applying tech theories to filmmaking. So I thought that was that's very interesting. But I don't know if that necessarily solves the
comfort level is not good. I think we spend most of the 3 hours arguing. Like, oh, this won't work. But when I saw the result, I was like, hey, because there's one part that we do mobbing, where everyone's got their opinions. We got all our character bios, we knocked out. Then we pass the laptop over, each one got 5 minutes. And you touch up your scene however you want. And then by the time I come out, there was something that individually I couldn't get. I wouldn't call it a compromise, but there was a monster that I thought is interesting to explore.
I think that what it's talking about, I think it feels a bit like idea generation because all writing is about ideas, right? I remember when we were doing Under One Rule, right? Every writer over the weekend had to come up with 10 ideas. 10. So can you imagine on the weekend, Monday we report back, right? There are like 7 writers, so 10 ideas each one. So there's 70 ideas put on the board.
You guys had a weekend. Gavin gave us 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, but
and
you
then
know
one
what I
post-it
mean?
note.
Yeah, so it's 70 ideas.
3 hours.
Ideas
Yeah.
part was 10 minutes, Gavin.
But can you imagine if like solo one person only got 10 ideas?
Yeah.
But then now you got 70 ideas. So we all sit there and then we were looking at it. Wow, why I never think of that? That's very good. Then you just cross out which one don't appeal, which one. Yeah, so yeah, that's how once you get an idea is so important.
Yeah.
The idea, once you get the idea, the premise, okay, run with it. So if you look at the first season, right, it's really a collective effort. All the writers come in.
I think the beautiful thing about churning as well is that you stop feeling precious about ideas that don't work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why us.
Yeah, yeah.
Churn.
So you get used to your ideas being rejected constantly, even ideas that you thought were great, right?
Yeah.
And just being like thrown out, and then I think it becomes like just your skin just grows thicker.
Skin goes thicker. Yeah, so working in the rooms thickens your skin, which is so important for working writer.
Yeah. You need to leave your ego at the door. You cannot be our egos. You got to be like, which one works the best?
Yeah.
When talking about as a group, I mean, when I started to know him was Writers Lab with Theatre Works. And that coming together, I think 3 months or 2 months, that every week we talk to each other and then we have to critique each other's things. I think it really helps a lot. Because you alone, you probably think, oh, mine is the best idea, But when somebody inputs something, then it's like, hey, maybe that can be incorporated or
Yeah, that's why the Alice project was very good.
Yeah.
The Alice project, that I attended like every 6 months, twice per week, have to go down there. So I submitted an idea. Then they kept telling me it doesn't feel like a feature film. Doesn't feel like a feature film. Oh, I hear so many times. I said, okay lah. So I went back and I think, okay, maybe you need to go to Philippines. Then again I pitch it. Okay, now it feels like a feature film. So without that group, right, I would have been stuck. I mean, just trying to keep hammering at the idea.
Yeah, so that was actually my a question that I wanted to ask. When you guys write collaboratively with other people, Singapore is such a diverse pot of so many different backgrounds, cultures, identities. Do you feel like when you write, how often do you write with somebody who is completely from a different background from yourself? And then is that where we can create really rojak uniquely Singaporean stories?
I don't think background is the key issue. I think it's vibes. Nowadays, everything's about vibes. Right?
Explain the vibe.
Like when you go into a room, when you sit down with somebody, when you have this sort of discussion with them, right? Do you feel that you are kind of on similar wavelengths, or are the wavelengths completely different? Because if the wavelengths are completely different, there is no point. Walk away. At the end of the day, it's not going to work out. It's like dating like that one, Different wavelength cannot be couple. That's it, full stop.
But can we tell a
Wavelengths
story
can be
together?
background, can be different backgrounds.
Right.
Yeah, but cannot be couple.
Okay.
Cannot be couple means cannot tell story together.
Have you ever actually worked with another writer on the same script? Like really?
I mean, Shu Ming and I co-wrote Ajuma together.
Okay.
So I think that was, you mentioned that working on a studio project on a TV project, it's good to have a room. I also think that it can be very helpful to have another writer on personal projects as well. So Ajuma was inspired by Shu Ming's mom. And I was brought onto the script writing process more than halfway through. I think he was already on draft 6 or something like that when I came on, to help get some things unstuck. And I found that a very beautiful and fruitful process because for me as a co-writer supporting my co-writer and also someone who's going to be the director, it's not just about what is the best story per se, but also what does this person want to say? So it's not about what is the best version of the story, but really trying to support the director and the writer to tell the version that they want to tell. Yeah, and make that communicable to the audience.
But your wavelength same
Yeah, I
that's
think
why
wavelength is
kind of
same.
similar, right?
The thing that I find really interesting about the co-writing process, and this isn't specific to Shu Ming or the Ajuma project, but that when everyone comes together and everyone contributes ideas, after a while, at least for me, I find I tend to forget which
Who or
idea
what,
came
right?
from who.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just becomes like a best idea wins kind of
Yeah.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that a lot.
But the wavelength thing quite important because I've ever written a feature film with another writer. Literally, we met every week at McDonald's. I can't remember where is it. It's at McDonald's. Okay, you write a scene. After you go and smoke. Okay, now my turn. Then I'll look at the scene. I don't like this. Okay, then I'll write the next scene. Okay, smoke away, come back. Look. Hey, what are you doing? I don't like this. So, we literally was doing that. Right? And then finally we finished the script, right? And then I thought that was a very interesting experience. It's literally two writers battling and confirm we are both same mindset. Like zombie lover, me zombie lover. So we both love the genre. Yeah. So that was one experience. I enjoy it lah. But I've also worked on another one where I like to write, so I write. Then the woman who was my co-writer, every time keep going to the pantry there, drink coffee, drink Milo. After I come back, go and pantry, drink coffee. So I end up writing everything. That's supposed to be my co-writer. So I felt, what co-writing like that? Then later the credit come out, her name and my name there. A bit weirdly, So I was very skeptical of the co-writing process back then. But then I met Dennis and different. Then I realized the mindset Plus that woman writer wasn't really a writer. But the Dennis was a writer, is a writer.
I think for myself, I do write as well, and then I realized that I write for women very differently. As in, I'm much stronger in writing women's stories, and it helps me when I have men. So a lot of people who have helped me on my script are men. One of them was Tiffany's husband, actually. Glenn would come along, and then he'll be like telling me certain things. I'll be like, oh, yeah, actually, that's a very feminine trait that I just imposed upon my male character. So I do feel that. Again, bringing back to how, because Singapore, it's so, we really have, such, look at where we are right now. This is the Nyonya culture, which is, we have so many different cultures. I wonder if we had writers of different diverse background, interests, identities come together, whether our stories, I think we do try.
Yeah, for sure, it will be, interesting stories that come out of
Like
it.
128 Circle, which you did. You have to write for Chinese, Indian, Malay, food.
I think that is like, in terms of variety, that is great. But in terms of to improve, say, the quality of the work, right? A collaborator, people who come in to ask the right questions are so important. The right probing questions. Because sometimes when you have a story, you may not actually know yet what is at the heart of your story, right? You might be trying to force it into a box that it actually does not fit in. Maybe it's a feature film instead of a TV series. Maybe it's not about the external conflict. Maybe it's about the relationship between these two people who somehow never see each other or whatever, that kind of thing. So somebody who comes in, asks you the right questions to probe, to make you question the core of the thing itself, right? I think is very important, so that once you know your core and your core is strong, you build everything around that.
I think now I'm suddenly remembering, is there a writers group, a writers union, a writers...
There's a screenwriter
Writers.
association.
Oh, that's what it is. Is it still active? Are you guys
Of course
all
active,
part of...
That's where we met.
She just
all of you
joined.
are-
Yeah, I
She
just joined.
Yeah.
So do you guys come together and write stories together?
Okay, now I'm selling.
Yeah.
I think every 2 years they change management lah.
Management.
I'm not the ExCom, but I'm the committee member. I'm not the president lah. Every year we try to do something. So most recently what we did, every 2 months we come up with this craft talk. We call it craft talk. So it's like a session where we get writers to come in and share something about the craft. So she was there, he was there, talking about how writers should work with producers and directors. So relevant to writers. So I think there's next one coming up will be about writers' room. Yeah, writers' room. So I think we're going to get a very young writer, Nicole, working in long form drama, get her take on it. So yeah, there's such things. The Screenwriter Association also we have talks and all that to bring in people to share.
Has the Screenwriters Association addressed the AI, the influx of AI writing? Or do you think it's
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not concerned.
Okay, this guy is expert.
I know.
Yeah, but I'm still not asked to join the Screenwriters Association,
no,
even after they asked me to.
No, you pay money, then you join. Right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Very
50
bad
bucks.
then you.
Yeah.
About the AI, I think you can't run away. I mean, we had this talk just now during lunch. How to, cover your tracks if you use AI.
Why do we have to cover our tracks if we use AI?
Oh, no need trouble.
No need to, right?
But I think it's going to be around, right? And it's getting good. I mean, if 1 year ago, it's laughable what they can generate. Now it's still not good, but I can tell you the problem is that, which I also say in the one is, the problem is clients want it cheap and fast.
Yes.
And that's going to be the main driver of commerce because cheap and fast is what they want. And the good is always sacrificed. And I think we are the last generation, that knows how to build things from scratch. Even write a screenplay from scratch.
Writer.
Like in 20 years' time, I don't think anybody can do it from scratch. That means they need to have a leg up from whatever AI tools they have, and then they layer on top of that. This is going to be like your intelligence is built in, and then your intelligence is also what type of intelligence you buy. So there's a
Premium one.
there's a Louis Vuitton type, and then there's the very cheap, fair price type. So I think,
The Taobao type.
Taobao type.
AI.
So, and people, writers will be graded based on that. You're using the Louis Vuitton type, or it's going to be around. Is it going to be everything looking the same? It is starting to look. You look at YouTube, and you see a lot of that already. You go and look at TikTok, you see a lot of that already, in terms of even the writing and all that. So I don't think you can run away.
I think screenwriting, my personal opinion, AI is not at that level. I don't know whether it's ever going to be that, but right now it's difficult. I've actually tried. I say, okay, I'll write a script in Aaron Sorkin style. He actually generated a script. It's very weird. It's a pastiche of Aaron Sorkin. It's a mockery. It's not Aaron Sorkin. Only Aaron Sorkin can write Aaron Sorkin, right? So screenplay cannot. Right now, I don't think it has the capability.
Yeah.
Log lines, yes, can generate 10 log lines for you, but you still need a human to adjust craft, and you still need, I would say, treat it as a very good writer's assistant. It's a very good editing tool, I have to admit. Write an outline, you want it to change for grammar mistakes and all that, how to improve the tone. Yeah, it's fantastic for that.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool that all writers can use. And I think as much as it helps us a lot, I think Gavin, totally hit the nail on the head by saying that it's how the clients then evaluate our work as writers, which then informs how we, as an industry, as a career, how people get paid, and then whether or not we get more fantastic young writers joining the group.
I think it's great for my cousin uses AI to write his emails because he's like, I don't want to waste time on that. So he just plugs in the points that he wants to cover, right? These are the prices, these are the whatever, and they just, okay, right,
That's true, AI is
copy
very good
paste,
at that.
do that. So he don't need to freeze up his headspace,
I can
right?
adjust the tone also. You want it to light,
Make it funny.
assertive.
But for like an outline, even for an outline or treatment or like a pitch document, right? No way will I ever leave it up to AI completely, right? You tell the AI to do, you still have to read through and make sure that every word is hitting the the emotions or whatever that you need it to hit. Otherwise, it's the project on the line there. It's if you don't get that pitch, you don't get that pitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with writing, like the thing about it is that it's what you have is your voice. And if people want to work with you, it's because you have a certain voice, and that makes you stand out from other people. When I go to some like universities and schools now, I just feel a lot of anxiety from young people because they don't know if in 2 years' time when they graduate, if they're even going to be able to find a job.
Yeah.
And now we can talk about AI because we have had some years in the field, right? And we can use it as an intern, as a tool. But for people who are graduating, I think it's very frightening for them.
Yeah.
And to that, I always think that it's important to focus on building skills. It's kind of like what you said, it's about learning the skills from scratch, because those skills are going to be what actually differentiates you later on. Like right now, it feels kind of hopeless because everyone's very excited about AI, but I do think, and this is just my own opinion, that it will hit a saturation point where a lot of people are using it and a lot of people sound the same. Yeah, and that's when, if you want to make it as a screenwriter, you must be able to have a different voice of your own. If not, what can you do that AI can't do?
Yeah, that's true, the
Yeah.
voice thing.
Yeah,
Because if you look at all the screenplays, like the memorable ones, like if you read a Shane Black screenplay, or you read a Nolan script. I mean, Nolan writes it in first person. I don't think AI will do that. Then Shane Black talks to you. You read in sixth direction, he's talking to you, he's addressing you as reader. You don't do that, but he does that. And he gives you, like, before the car hits the deer, that's a scene. He actually tells you deer fact number 9. He actually writes down there, deer fact number 9. He makes it very entertaining. AI can't do that. But that is original. That's Shane Black.
Talking about AI at this moment,
Yeah.
right? Just yesterday, I was telling him about how badly they want AI to work. So I threw my whole script of my podcast that I did yesterday, and I said, okay, give me 5 quotable quotes and give me the time code. Then wow, the quotes were damn good, and then I go to the timeline. There's no such.
they just made that shit up.
Yeah, because they just want to generate, right? And they are lying. They are what they call hallucinating, right? But it's not reliable at this moment. Yeah. I was just saying, that wow, the quotes are so good. Don't have
Are you writing anything now?
I'm rewriting because when I wanted to right now, I really want to do very low budget one man kind of feature film or whatever, because I think the part about failing and not self censoring and all that, I thought was something that I want to explore. And I noticed that whenever I write something, it comes out very heavily censored. I became the monster that I took money to, basically in the 20 years, but it also formed me into what I am. So I wanted to explore the part, and I took out 2 very stupid scripts in the very beginning of the 20 years, which is very silly, because I love absurdists and like stupid scripts. So I'm thinking of taking that up and writing. One of them is supposed to be a companion piece to Sam's Siu, which is called mine is Concoction. It's about talking about Asians male size, the obsession with it. There was a movie called Tiger's Whip, so something like a sequel to that. So yeah, so I think on my downslope of I'm more like retiring. So I'm thinking of still exploring those things when I want to explore unfettered, rather than making commercial things, and whether Singaporean audience would like. I think
I love asking Gavin this question because every time I see him, I'll ask him, actually, what are you writing now? Because he always has some story. that
some
he's-
stupid ideas.
No. Yeah, it's fun. Well, what about you, Kris? Is there anything? What are you developing next?
Yeah, so I'm currently writing on a number of regional and international television projects, and it's been really fun. Also a real it gets messy because trying to juggle multiple projects at once.
In a writer's room or on your...
Some are writer's room and some are ideas that I originated. So some of them have gone into development stage. So I'm writing scripts for that. It's been a struggle to try and not make everything bleed together. If I'm working on more than like 2 projects at once, sometimes I'll be like, wait, this character belongs in which story, you know, and what is their trait? Yeah. So I feel that when I tell people that I'm working on these projects, they'll be like, oh wow, like you're really lucky you get to write. You know, and I really, going back to your question earlier about do we need more screenwriters in Singapore? I think yes. If people come up to me and they're like, you're so lucky you get to write, you get to be a screenwriter, I'm like, yes, I am very lucky, but I do think that there are a lot of talented people in Singapore who would be amazing at that if they had the chance. Yeah.
That's the next question. No, but I actually wonder how many projects can you guys juggle at one? How many writing projects can you juggle? I know you are juggling a couple.
I am on 2 right now that are. No, that's like 3. Oh wow.
Yeah, it's interesting
Okay.
you said the characters meld
But
into.
yeah, it's difficult. I think sometimes when the timelines sort of like pile up together and there's very little you can do to control that. Yeah. Otherwise, I think at least for me, these projects are set in different enough worlds that I don't confuse them at all. 2 of them are audio dramas. One is a mystery, the other one is like apocalyptic horror. And then there's a TV series. The audio drama is very challenging because I've never done that before. You're basically writing something crippled, right? If you're used to screenwriting, you take away visual, all visual. How do you show and don't tell when literally the whole medium is telling? That was one big thing that I had to figure out how to do together with the showrunners on shows lah.
And then how many projects are you writing now? Still writing jokes on your own for practice?
I have a day job, very important, so I can choose what I want to work on my sideline. I also do a blog of my own, so I'm forced to write every week, come out with content. Yeah. Then I'm working on 2 feature film ideas. One was developed, the Atlas project, I developed one. The other one is personal. I also write for myself short stories. And I turned that into a feature film. Yeah. And I submit that for competition. So I always look for competition to enter. And also write novels on the side. Yeah. So for Epigram. Yeah. So it's 2 films plus 1 novel. It's the main thing I'm working on. Plus my blog.
Have you had one published by them yet? Epigram?
Almost.
Almost.
Yeah. So that's what keeps me going. So I'm almost a published author. Almost. I got into the long list.
Like, are you gonna revise that and send it to them again, or?
Oh, because that one is controversial book. Yeah, it's really controversial. I think when can I say it? When
Say it.
Of course.
What?
when I was
Political.
Yes.
Do you want to say for him?
I was advised not to have it published because then people will complain that
Or publish abroad?
no, publish in Singapore.
Oh yeah, but if you publish it abroad,
Yeah, but then this one was a local publisher.
Oh, yeah,
Was Kenny Lack. Do you know Kenny Lack? Kenny Lack from Mad Press. So Kenny Lack actually published my book. I had 20 copies. He gave me free 20 copies. And I was going to get published already. Then the scandal came out. Kenny Lack got himself this hot soup thing. Then, okay, not a right time to. But because Kenny Lack published, I knew I had a shot. So I've been trying to hit Epigram ever since. So I got on the long list, but never actually got into the short list. So it's kind of like my badge of honor. If I can get in Epigram, then I'm considered literary writer.
Right.
I can join the gang there, the party.
Another association.
Yeah.
but that almost getting there, it reminds me also of, like I have this project that I'm going to bring to international markets.
Yeah.
And the reason that I know it's a great idea is because I entered into some competition and then almost got into final. The reason I'm not in the final is because they wanted all rights to it. And I was like, ha 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 ha, ha no. Right? Then I'm like, okay, the fact that that competition thing was international means that it can and will be received well overseas, which means that I can bring it out on my own.
Yeah, well, so if I may sum up, like, some of the things that writers here face, besides getting our projects commissioned, besides collaboration, yeah, I think just being able to survive is one question. But at the same time, we also need and want and welcome a lot more people to become screenwriters if they're so interested, right?
But I think at the end of the day, right, you mentioned survive, right?
Mm.
I think at the end of the day, there are other people who have said this before. It's a game of attrition. How long can you stay in the biz without needing to go and get another job, without having to leave the industry just in order to survive? Because no matter what, down here, every day when we're in the industry, we're taking hits of income hits. We have to all have to sacrifice something to stay in this industry.
Yeah.
Right? You can very well go into banking or whatever, right? And it's an industry that is not very welcoming to those who don't already have some bit of privilege.
Which was going to be my last question
Oh,
for,
I'm so
for
sorry.
today. No,
I
it's
see.
a good one because it leads up to what I was going to ask. What kind of support you guys would like to, in an ideal world, what kind of support do you think you would like to see from the space, this country that we are creating in, or the younger generation, the Gen Zs?
Yeah, I think
students?
definitely opportunities for mentorship, and also internships. As a writer, as I was saying earlier, like I think that training and that progression is really important. Being able to shadow other writers in writers' rooms, starting out doing coverage, something like that in the script space, just reading a lot, reviewing a lot. I think is very important. I would love to see those opportunities made possible for people, especially people from diverse backgrounds. Yeah.
I think we have a lot of film labs that only writers know about. And then even platforms. I think we have the Writers Festival. I think even at the ATF, there was a from book to screen kind of a talk to encourage people to adapt more projects, right?
I think it's more sustaining day to day life. That's why everybody keeps saying Kris very lucky because she earns a living writing. Well, I earned a living writing years ago. Then when I left to go into lecturing, I was still writing. I've never stopped writing but when I lecturing became my day job. It put the bread on the table. No, because I enjoy lecturing because it's on writing.
Right.
Anything you do writing, I like it. So and that it also informs my writing. So I'm okay with that.
So how do you support your students who are learning to become writers? Like,
Yeah, I always tell them I get a day job.
but then they're not writing if they're getting a
No,
day job
you get a day job.
in writing.
No, you get a day job so that you can write without fear of if I do this project, how am I going to survive next month? Don't have this kind of thoughts because if you're I can't survive next month, I need money, then it's going to influence your writing, right? So your day job, okay, it's like Thailand, right? I don't know what's a company who did
GDH.
GDH, right? So they do all these mega blockbusters, rom-coms, right? They get all the money, then they do all those super arty films that maybe only 5 people will watch. But it's very esoteric, but it's art. They do that. They do the commercial ones so that they can do the passion one. So to me, a day job is the commercial one, so that it gives you, so that you can protect your passion. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Protect your passion. Yeah. So if you have a day job that is also kind of connected writing, which I do copywriting, I do website writing. I still apply the craft. Copywriting also informs my screenwriting. Because copywriting, you need to be brief, concise, targeted to the consumer, which is also relevant to screenwriting. And then you expand your writing skill set. And anything you learn is useful for your writing. Even if your day job is plumbing, you're a very good plumber, it will influence your writing. And again, you protect your passion so that you can go home and write without fear that there's no food on your table in the next month.
Okay, like to me, when I hear that, right, I feel sad that somebody of your stature needs to take a day job to protect your passion. You know what I mean? of his stature and experience and ability and talent. And that to me says that something is wrong, that this is somehow not sustainable in a country that is so rich.
It might be a global thing.
It's a value thing. How much do we value artists and the work that artists do? Or are we just looking at them as like products?
Well, I mean, even Hollywood had the writers'
The
strike.
fact is, Singapore has this mentality that sort of has filtered into everything, which is everything you want instant results. You cannot have instant results. It does not exist, right? You cannot have growth and mentorship and all that instantly. The writers won't suddenly appear overnight. You know, you can't. Why is Korea where they are today? Because they have spent decades pumping money into that industry and nurturing those talents from the ground up. When those talents like Park Chan-wook and all that, when they were young, if they did not have to worry about putting food on the table, then they could make their art. That's why Korea is where it is today. And so, as long as we are not willing to play that long game of, planting those seeds and allowing them the time to grow and bear fruit.
What does planting those seeds look like?
That fruit is not going to happen.
What do you mean by planting those seeds? Like nurturing more young writers?
At the end of the
like
day,
internship?
it's having enough money in the industry as a whole to sustain all of these people.
I think last time I worked on a project with Australia. Then I thought it was very interesting because Australia, right, they call all the writers to meet up, and this is just to discuss only, So we met up in some place lah. After we finished the meeting, right, I mean we had to take leave, take leave and then meet up. I was very surprised that they pay you.
For your time
to meet up.
Yeah, it's not
for your
even
time.
right outline, just to meet up to talk about ideas. I don't think it's ever happened in Singapore. It's like meet up, you take leave, take leave, come talk. Then you have to come, and there's no pay you for your time. So I was quite. And then I think the first draft they go by step, right? So the first draft they pay you 5K. You can go up to 10K if you clear all the drafts. Wow, very rare to get. See, if you write a script, they pay you 10,000. So if you write 3-4 scripts, that's 40,000. I think you can survive. You can survive really, 40,000. But instead, Singapore, I don't know whether it's sensitive to talk about this. But Singapore, they pay you maybe 3-4K.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, tough. That's tough. So you imagine how many scripts you have to write just to have that's the reality.
I think the main thing about this is that there are two things. One is if you look into the industry and then we are saying that it doesn't protect its own, doesn't grow its own. I think just 4 years back they did the study, and then I think Joachim at IMDb was saying we don't even factor for 1%. Everything, film, animation, game, 1%.
Sorry, I don't-
1% of GDP. If you want to see how much they should apportion, they will look at it from that point of view. But on the other hand, I think people like Momo Films and all that has been doing a lot of great work doing prestige productions. I call them prestige because they are on the higher level and then they are attractive to regional, international work, which is good because then perhaps maybe even for Netflix and all that, will perhaps see us as a good co-production place, and then perhaps maybe we can bump up our 1%, right, or more than 1%.
Award nominations.
Yeah. So I think that is important. To me, I think what's even more important for writers, and you're talking about, it's sad and all that. Even for me, I mean, like, it's I'm coming 60, and it's a natural thing about like growing old. They can't fight as much. You're not as vital. So, but I think that our stories are still as vital.
Yeah.
So, but they don't have to be, everything goes into a TV or film or on a prestige level. And I think that's also still very important, like on a ground level, even somebody who don't know how to use a handphone, you know, in the 70s and making a film. I would want to watch that. To me, that's why I took up my master's, is to actually do more in that vein, which is not so much of like, you know, doing things on a prestige level. I think they are doing a great job. Anthony is doing a great job. So, but on the other hand, I think we have a lot of stories to tell. I mean, like what we hear, and the worst thing about for a writer is that his words. And a lot of clients will tell me is that, what does your writer use? Microsoft Word. I also know how to use Microsoft Word. That's the damning problem,
yeah,
because
Yeah, you think just because you can type in English, you
exactly,
You're a writer,
you're
yeah.
like, how much you're paying the copyright? Huh? I also know how to type, you know. And then I will have to keep, you know, the client keep changing the copy, and so they always belittle the efforts of a writer, but they don't get you like what you said, you know, from a joke to, you know, a sketch, and then it evolves, and then it becomes more complex of how you manipulate a story, or what's the point of what you're trying to say. So you see a lot of good movies now. It does that, you know, like Drive My Car, right?
Oh,
Like
oh my gosh.
what's that Nazi one? Then what's the Nazi one next door one?
Oh yeah, what's that?
The
Zone of
South one.
Interest.
Zone of interest, zone of interest.
That is brilliant writing. I was like, I mean, those
It's very
kind of,
experimental.
yeah, but I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's
I
so
was
good.
like, and I think as Singapore is storytellers, I think it's important to go that way. There's also prestige. I think we need the young, or even not so young, to really, you know, support this effort, because hopefully our GDP will be more than 1%, right? If we're depending on you.
No pressure.
Yeah, I think is how I find, you know, even this roundtable about, even though I'm like more like, you know, not really a writer. I have written some things, and is besides actors, you know, writers are very precious to me, because those are the things you see in front of the camera. A lot of times, you know, whenever I see it's like a set of hundreds of graphers or grip, I was like, that doesn't translate. I mean, that can be done by two person. So writing, it translates in front of the camera, same as actors' performances.
Well, I think like again for story, it's really also about all of our experiences as people, as citizens. So you know, I look forward to many more stories from all of you here at this roundtable. Thank you so much for your time.